There is a silent conspiracy in which we are all unwitting participants, a grand narrative woven from the threads of acquisition, achievement, and accumulation. The material world, with its glittering promises and solid assurances, has convinced you that it is the only reality, that your worth is measured in what you possess, your identity is carved from what you have accomplished, and your security is built upon what you can control. This world, this dunya, operates on a single, unshakable assumption that you believe in its permanence. It never expected that you would discover the one secret that unravels its entire existence. It never anticipated that you would stumble upon the ancient Sufi truth of Fana, the radical, liberating annihilation of the self and the divine. This is not a secret of destruction, but a secret of revelation. It is the profound understanding that everything you strive to hold onto, the status, the possessions, the very idea of a separate you, is already in a state of perpetual vanishing, and that true power lies not in resisting this flow, but in surrendering to it with such profound understanding that you discover the only thing that has never, and can never, perish, the eternal face of your Lord. Look around you. Everything your eyes can see, everything your hands can touch, carries within it the silent whisper of its own end. The new car that loses its luster, the wealth that fluctuates with markets, the body that ages with time, the relationships that change their form, all of it is proclaiming the Quranic truth: all that is on earth will perish. The material world never expected you to actually listen to this whisper, to take it not as a threat, but as the ultimate clue to your freedom. It assumed you would be too busy building sandcastles to notice the tide that inevitably returns. The secret of Fana is the conscious, willing participation in this universal law. It is the decision to stop clinging to the individual drops of water and to instead merge with the ocean. The great mystic Mansur al-Hallaj, in his luminous work Tawazun, dared to speak from this state of annihilation, declaring, "Ana al-haq, I am the truth." The world heard blasphemy, but the annihilated heart was simply stating a fact. When the drop of the self ceases to exist, only the ocean of divine reality remains. The material world executed him for this secret, because it is the one truth that dissolves the material world's authority over the human soul. You feel the weight of this world every day, the anxiety of potentially losing what you have, the exhaustion of maintaining the image you project, the deep, unspoken emptiness that follows even your greatest successes. This suffering is not a sign of failure, it is the inevitable friction created when a soul that is inherently eternal rubs against a reality that is inherently temporary. You are a timeless traveler trying to make a permanent home in a hotel room. The secret of Fana is the key to that hotel room door. It does not ask you to abandon the world, but to see it for what it truly is: a fleeting dream within the constant, waking reality of the divine. The world offers you complexity, Fana offers you the most profound simplicity. It is the ultimate surrender, the final letting go, not into nothingness, but into the one and only thing that is real. The material world never expected you to learn that by releasing everything, you gain everything. It never anticipated that your greatest act of power would be to willingly disappear, only to find that you have arrived, at last, at the shore of your own eternal, unshakable essence. The secret of Fana can feel like a distant mountain peak, a breathtaking vision, but one separated from the ground on which you stand by a seemingly impossible climb. The material world, sensing your hesitation, whispers its most convincing lie: this is for the saints and the prophets, not for you, with your responsibilities, your flaws, your very human life. But this is the final defense of a paradigm that knows its days are numbered. The path to annihilation is not a single, blinding leap into the void. It is a staircase of conscious, daily choices, a meticulous and loving process of unbecoming that occurs right in the heart of your ordinary existence. It begins not with hating the world, but with seeing it clearly. It starts with a simple but profound question, asked in the quiet moments: to what am I truly attached? Not what do I own, but what owns me? Is it the need for a certain title at work? The addiction to being right in an argument? The quiet dread of financial insecurity? The identification with a past trauma that has become a core part of your story? These are the individual chains, and Fana is the process of holding each one to the fire of divine awareness until its metallic grip softens and falls away. The practical path is etched into the very design of your being. It is the science of the heart. The first and most powerful tool is dhikr, but now practiced with the specific intention of Fana. When you sit in remembrance, you are not merely repeating words. You are conducting a spiritual operation. With every La ilaha illallah, you are not praising a distant God, you are actively negating every false idol you have erected within your own consciousness. La ilaha, there is no God. There is no true reality to this thought that worries me, to this desire that consumes me, to this identity I am so fiercely protecting. Illallah, except Allah. Only the divine reality remains. You perform this negation not with force, but with a gentle, persistent focus, as the sun does not force the snow to melt but simply shines upon it. The great sage Ibn Arabi, in the Fusus al-hikam, explains that the entire cosmos is in a state of perpetual Fana, constantly being recreated by God at every instant. Your practice of dhikr is the conscious alignment with this cosmic process. You are willingly participating in the dissolution of the form you called you, to make room for the new creation that God is always bringing into being. As you engage in this practice, the battlefield becomes your own awareness. You will notice a thought arise, a memory of an insult, a plan for a future acquisition. The old you would have clutched it, wrestled with it, given it a home. The seeker of Fana simply witnesses it. They see it as a cloud passing through the vast sky of their awareness. They do not fight the cloud, they simply acknowledge its presence and return their attention to the sky itself, which is the constant presence of the divine. This is the essence of the secret. You are not the cloud, the temporary thought, emotion, or identity. You are the sky, the aware, vast, and unchanging consciousness in which these temporary forms appear and disappear. The material world never expected you to discover this vantage point because from here, its power is an illusion, an often painful illusion, but an illusion nonetheless. The chain of attachment to a possession loses its strength when you realize you are the awareness observing the possession, not the ego identified with it. The fear of loss transforms when you understand that what is truly you can never be lost. This is the gradual, graceful, and practical annihilation. It is not a violent death, but a gentle unfolding, a constant returning to your original, unburdened state before the world convinced you that you were anything less than a direct expression of the divine. There comes a moment on this path, not marked on any clock or calendar, when the practice of remembrance ceases to be something you do and becomes the reality you inhabit. The diligent work of dhikr, the conscious witnessing of thoughts, culminates in a profound perceptual shift, a great unseeing of the world you thought you knew. It is as if a lens you never knew was there suddenly dissolves from your inner eye, and the entire universe is revealed in its true, fluid, and luminous nature. The material world never expected this, for this is the moment its solidity vanishes. The chair you sit on is no longer merely a static object, but a dancing constellation of particles held in a temporary pattern by a divine command. The money in your bank account is not security, but a current of energy flowing through your life, whose true value lies only in how it is used in service of the real. The reputation you guarded so fiercely is seen as it is, a fleeting echo in the minds of others, as insubstantial as a shadow. This is not a philosophical idea, it is a direct, experiential knowing that arises when the filter of the ego self begins to burn away in the fire of Fana. You are not destroying the world, you are, for the first time, seeing it without the distortion of your own desire and fear. In this state of unseeing, a great and paradoxical liberation occurs. The very things you were once attached to, the praise, the possessions, the outcomes, become neutral. They lose their emotional charge. They are like scenery passing by the window of a moving train. You can appreciate their beauty, their utility, even their challenge, but you no longer mistake them for your destination. The deep, gnawing anxiety that was the background noise of your life begins to quiet, not because your external circumstances have necessarily changed, but because the one who was anxious, the separate self defined by those circumstances, is dissolving. In its place arises a profound, unshakable equanimity. The Quranic verse, "To Allah we belong and to Him we shall return," transforms from a verse recited at funerals into the living, breathing truth of every single moment. Every breath is a returning. Every ending is a confirmation of this truth. Every loss is now recognized as a gentle, if sometimes firm, hand prying your fingers loose from an illusion, guiding you back to the only possession you ever truly had, your own divine essence. This is the secret the material world feared you would discover, that by letting go of everything, you are not left with nothing, but with the only thing that is. The heart, emptied of its false idols, becomes a vessel for a quality of love that the world cannot comprehend. This love is not an emotion directed at objects, it is the very substance of the awareness that now perceives. You look at a tree and feel not a separation between you and it, but a shared existence in a single field of divine life. You encounter another person and see not a separate ego to be judged or manipulated, but a unique manifestation of the beloved, walking its own path of return. The chains of the material world are broken not by breaking them, but by realizing they were made of a mist that could not withstand the dawn of true seeing. You are free not from the world, but within it. You can engage with it fully, joyfully, and compassionately, because you are no longer its prisoner. You are a traveler passing through, a custodian of divine gifts, a conscious participant in a dream whose dreamer is God. And in this participation, you find a peace that the world could never give, and that the world can never take away. What emerges from the ashes of the self is not a void, but a life of astonishing clarity and purpose, a return not to a physical garden, but to the original state of the heart as a receptive, flourishing sanctuary of the divine. This is Baka, the abiding. It is the secret second half of the transformation that the material world never anticipates, for it appears not as a withdrawal from creation, but as a more profound and authentic engagement with it. The one who has undergone Fana does not become a ghost in the world, they become its most awake and compassionate inhabitant. They walk the same streets, perform the same tasks, and interact with the same people, but they do so from an entirely different center of gravity. Where once they were a rock in the river, solid, separate, and battered by the current, they have now become the water itself, flowing with the river's course, feeling its every movement as their own, encountering no resistance because they have become one with the flow of divine will. The great master Ibn Arabi, in describing this station of Baka, writes that the servant becomes a perfect mirror, polished of the rust of selfhood, reflecting nothing but the attributes of the real. They are a conscious instrument through which God's compassion, generosity, and justice move into the world. In this state, every action becomes a form of worship, and every moment becomes a place of meeting. The seeker, now the knower, does not need to retreat to a cave to remember God, they find Him in the handshake of a friend, in the complexity of a business decision, in the quiet fatigue at the end of a long day. The material world, which once seemed like a barrier to the divine, is now revealed as its very expression. The dichotomy between spiritual and worldly simply collapses. Cooking a meal for your family is as sacred as performing the formal prayer, because both are done with the same presence and the same intention to serve the real. This is the ultimate defeat of the material world's paradigm. It is not rejected, but redeemed. It is seen and used for its true purpose as a field for the manifestation of divine qualities. The heart that abides in Baka is like the sun. It gives its light unconditionally to all things, to the beautiful flower and the rotting garbage alike, without being tainted by what it illuminates. It simply shines, because shining is its nature. This is the life of what the Sufis call the insan al-kamil, the complete human being. They are in the world, but not of it, because their source of identity and security is now located in the eternal. The anxieties that plague humanity, the fear of lack, the dread of insignificance, the panic of loss, have no foothold in a heart that knows itself to be a temporary custodian of God's possessions, on a brief journey back to its Lord. This abiding presence is the final secret. Never expected that its own annihilation would lead to such a state of empowered, joyful, and untouchable peace. It never anticipated that by dying to everything, you would inherit everything. You move through the marketplace of the world with a silent heart, your inner peace unassailable by its chaos, your inner joy independent of its approvals. You have become a living bridge between the temporary and the eternal, a proof that the world was never the problem, only our forgetful and grasping relationship to it. And in this remembrance, you have returned to the garden, not as a place, but as a state of being fully human, fully alive, and fully transparent to the divine. And so, the secret that the material world never expected to be revealed now rests not in a dusty manuscript or a forgotten tomb, but here, in the silent space between your heartbeats, in the quiet awareness witnessing these very words. This journey from the solid ground of the ego to the luminous expanse of Fana and Baka is not a historical record. It is your own story, waiting to be claimed. The material world has constructed a formidable fortress around your perception, with walls of worry, gates of desire, and a moat of fear. But you now hold the key that can dissolve its very foundations. That key is not a complex philosophical argument, it is the simple, revolutionary act of shifting your identity from the temporary to the eternal, from the created to the creator, from the drop to the ocean. The world's greatest fear is that you will use it. Begin where you are. You need not abandon your job, your family, or your responsibilities. The path of Fana is walked in the midst of them. Let your daily life become your monastery. Let every moment of frustration be your call to remembrance. When anxiety about the future arises, feel its weight, and then, with the exhale, release the name Allah. You are not begging for a change in circumstances, you are realigning your consciousness with the only circumstance that is unchanging. When a desire for recognition or possession tightens its grip, pause and ask, who was it that wants this? Peel back the layers of the temporary self until you touch the silent, yearning heart beneath, the heart that does not want the thing of the world, but wants the maker of the world. This is the practical application of the secret. This is how you live the truth of everything perishes except His face. You practice seeing the face of God in the perishing of your own worries, in the fading of your own desires, in the quiet dissolution of your most cherished illusions. You are the inheritor of a lineage of lovers who discovered this secret and allowed it to transform them into beacons of divine light. You are connected to al-Hallaj, to Ibn Arabi, to Rumi, not by blood, but by this shared, timeless truth beating within your chest. The material world never expected you to realize that you were part of this golden chain. It assumed you would remain distracted, a consumer of life rather than a conscious participant in the divine mystery. But now you know. The secret of Fana is your birthright. It is the promise of liberation coded into your very soul. The world will continue its chatter, its demands, its dazzling display. But you can now move through it with a quiet smile, knowing that it is all a fleeting shadow on the surface of an infinite, calm, and loving reality. You have been given the map to the treasure that was hidden within you all along. The journey home is not a distance to be covered, but a remembrance to be lived. Step by step, breath by breath, remembrance by remembrance, until you are nowhere to be found, and only God remains. This was the story of the secret the material world never saw coming. But your journey is unique. What is the one material attachment, the thought, the object, the identity you feel ready to begin dissolving through the practice of Fana? Share it in the comments below. Let us witness and support each other in this great unveiling. And if you are ready to understand how this ultimate surrender leads to the ultimate love, then your heart is prepared for the truth that awaits in the video that appears now. Rumi's hidden teaching: when the heart awakens, the mind surrenders.